Hi guys, welcome to today's tutorials. Today we'll be looking at trigonometry, general angles of trigonometry. Looking at general angle. General angle simply means an angle of any size. It can be positive or negative. Now in calculating our general angles, for the positive, starting from 0, we will now move anti-clockwise. Okay, so this becomes our 0 degree, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270, and 360. So we go anti-clockwise to calculate our positive. Now, for the negative, we go clockwise. So this becomes 0 degrees, minus 90, minus 180, minus 270, and minus 360. So it is important to know how the positive and the negative are moving. Okay, it is important to understand the direction of the movement of our positive angles and our negative angles in calculating our angle theta. All right, moving on. Now, when we have a cycle, okay, we have a circle divided into 4 equal parts. We refer this as our first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, and fourth quadrant. Now, a quadrant, as you can see, is a quarter of a cycle. Now, when a cycle is divided into 4 equal parts, one part of that cycle or a quarter of a cycle is referred to as a quadrant, and it is made up of 90 degrees. So that means the angle here is 90, 90, 90, 90. Bearing in mind that total sum of angles in the circle is 360 and the angle at a point is also 360. Now, this quadrant is important in helping us calculating the angles theta, our theta in various quadrants. Now, for the first quadrant, we know that in our first quadrant, all our angles are what? Acute. Okay? In our first quadrant, all our angles are acute. That means they are between 0, theta is equal to 0 to 90 degrees. Okay? Now we know that theta is equal to 0, between 0 to 90 degrees. Since this is 0, this would be 90, this would be 180, and this would be 270. Now, in the second quadrant, okay, our theta is between 90 to 180 degrees. And the second quadrant, our theta is between 90 to 180 degrees. Now, in the third quadrant, our theta is between 180 to 270 degrees. And in the fourth quadrant, our theta is between 270 to 360 degrees. Now, this will help us in calculating each of our quadrants, each of the angles, how to get the acute angles in each of our quadrants in our further study. So stick with us as we explore how to get our acute angles for each of the quadrants. If you've watched those our tutorials so far and you've enjoyed it, click on your notification button for more updates. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this link with your friends. Alright, now for us to calculate our acute angles for each quadrant, it is important to label this as, bearing in mind that in trigonometry that major points of trigonometry is a sine, cosine, and tangent. Now, this three forms a trigonometry. Now, for us to apply this in each quadrant, now it is important to know that in the first quadrant, in our first quadrant, all are positive. Now, what do we mean by all are positive? Our sine, cosine, and tangent are positive in the first quadrant. In the second quadrant, only sine is positive. Only sine is positive. That is to say, cos is negative and tan is negative. Now, in the third quadrant, our sine is negative, only cos is negative, and tangent is positive. And in the fourth quadrant, our sine is negative, cos is positive, and tan is negative. Now, we can see that in it, we're having it as this: all positive, sine positive, cos positive, tan positive, and cos positive. Okay, if we go anti-clockwise this way, from C, we have it as C-A-S-T. We can call it cast. This is our fourth. From fourth, first, second, and third, we call it cast, or we go apt. From first, fourth, third, second. Okay, now cast or apt will help you in understanding those diagram, that in the first quadrant all are positive, second quadrant only sine is positive, third quadrant only tan is positive, and fourth quadrant only cast is our cos is positive. Now, we know that in our first quadrant, all right, for us to get the acute angle, all theta is acute. Now, why? Because acute angles are angles that are between 0 to 90 degrees. Acute angles are angles that are less than 90 degrees. So in our first quadrant, all our angles, theta is acute angle. Now for the second quadrant, okay, for the second quadrant, our theta is not acute. Our theta is more of obtuse, okay? It's an obtuse angle. Why? Because obtuse angles are angles that are greater than 90 but less than 180. So our theta is obtuse angle in our second quadrant. But since we are looking for the acute of it, our obtuse, okay, but if we want to get acute here, we will do 180 minus theta equals to acute angle. Okay, 180 minus our theta in the second quadrant will give us the acute angle for the second quadrant. Now for the third quadrant, we know that it's going to be reflex. Theta equals reflex. Okay, now since our reflex angles are angles that are greater than 180 but less than 360, we know that theta is going to be reflex. And for us to get acute in our top quadrant, we'll do theta minus 180 degrees to get our acute angle. Okay, now in the fourth quadrant, our theta is also reflex. Okay, but now to get our acute angle, we are doing 360 minus theta to get our acute angle. Now, let's look at the positions of each and every of this acute angle. Now, in the first quadrant here, our theta here is acute. Okay, that's our theta in the first quadrant. Now, for the second quadrant, Okay, in the first quadrant, our theta here is acute. First quadrant. Now, in the second quadrant, all right, since we are doing 180 minus theta, okay, our acute angle will be this. Our acute angle for second quadrant is this. Now, remember that we are taking our angles from here. Okay? Now, in the third quadrant, second quadrant, now for the third quadrant, since it's theta minus 180, this will be our acute. Okay? Our acute angle will be here. That's for our third quadrant. And for the fourth quadrant, since we are doing 360 minus theta, 360 minus theta, bearing in mind that our angle came from here, this will be our theta for the acute angle of the fourth quadrant. Okay, that will be our acute angle for the fourth quadrant. So when you're calculating your theta, this is how to calculate the acute angle for each and every of the first quadrants. And the first quadrant, we know that all our angles are acute, so it falls between 0 to 90 degrees. They are all acute. And the second quadrant, for us to calculate our acute theta, that will become 180 minus your given angle. Now, in the third quadrant, for us to calculate the acute angle of it, it becomes theta given angle minus 180. All right. Now, in the fourth quadrant, we'll also calculate it as 360 minus our given angle to find the theta or the acute angle in the fourth quadrant. So from here, we are going to dive into examples of how to calculate both positive and negative, and also how to find which quadrant certain angles fall into. All right. It says, our first question says, state the quadrant in which the following can be found and find the acute angles of the following numbers, degrees or angles. Now, for our first question, for 192, in which quadrant can it be found? Solution. Now, for 192, we know that 192 is greater than 180. Okay, 192 is greater than 180, so it will be found in our third quadrant. So 192 will be found in the third quadrant. Okay, now looking at 318. 318 degree, in which quadrant would it be found? Okay, now 318 we know is greater than 270 but less than 360, so it will be found in the fourth quadrant. Alright, so this is 318. Okay, it will be found in the fourth quadrant. Now looking at 24. 24 is found in which quadrant? We all know that 24 is less than 90 degrees, so it will be found in the first quadrant. And looking at 106. 106 is greater than 90 but less than 180, so it will be found in the second quadrant. Okay, now minus 72. Okay, minus 72, if we have our diagram this way, our circle, All right. Remember that our negative is clockwise. Okay. So minus 72 is less than minus 90. So it will be found in the fourth quadrant. Minus 72 will be found in the fourth quadrant. And the next one is minus 704 degrees. Now, minus 704 degrees, for us to find this, we can say 704 plus minus 704 plus 360. Okay? If we do minus 704 plus 360, we are going to have our answer as 334. So we're having minus 344, sorry. Okay. Now, minus 344. If we do minus 344 now on this, we'll see that it falls within the first quadrant. Okay. So our minus 704 will be in our first quadrant. So minus 704 will lie in our first quadrant. Alright. Now, to the second question that says, find the acute angles of the following. Now, for us to find the acute angles of 150, A, 150. In which quadrant is 150? In the second quadrant. Okay. 150 lies in the second quadrant, and we know that formula for finding acute angles of in the second quadrant is 180 minus theta. Now, in this case, our given angle is 150. So this becomes 180 minus 150, which will give us 30 degrees. So the acute angle of 150 is 30 degrees. Now, B says 216. Now, its acute angle, since we know that 216 is greater than 180 but less than 270, we know it will lie in the third quadrant. Bear in mind our numbering. Okay, it will lie in the third quadrant. And for third quadrant, we know that our formula there is theta minus 180. So this will give us 216 minus 180. Okay, 6 minus 0 will give us 6. 11 minus 8 will give us 3. So this will give us 36 degrees. Alright, so for C, that says 334 degrees. We know that 334 is greater than 270 but less than 360. So it will lie in the fourth quadrant. Okay. So since it's in the fourth quadrant, our acute angle there will become 360 minus 334 degrees. Okay, which is going to give us 10 minus 4 will give us 6. 5 minus 3 will give us 2. So this will give us 26 degrees. Alright, as our acute angle. Now, D says 775 degrees. Now, 775 is greater than 360. So, for us to find our acute and know the quadrant in which it will lie, we can do 775 minus 360. Okay, 775 minus 360 will give us a 415, which is still greater than 360. So minus another 360, we are having 55 degrees. Now, we'll know that for us to find the quadrant in which it will lie, so if we go 362 times, so this will lie in our first quadrant. Okay, so 775 lies in our first quadrant since we are going 362 times 1, 2, which gives us 720. So we can say this to be 775 minus 720 to give us 55. 5 degrees. So our acute angle for 775 will be 55 degrees. Next, looking at our E, which is 265. Now, 265 is in which quadrant? 265 is less than 270, so it will be in the third quadrant. So 265 is in our third quadrant, which is going to become theta minus 180, which is giving us 265 minus 180, which is going to give us 85 degrees as our acute angle. With this, we've come to the end of today's tutorials. If there will be any questions or comments, put them down in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and click on the notification button for more updates. Also, like our page and share with your friends and family. Follow us also on Facebook page at Mathematics Simplified. Thank you.